We're back on the air. It's another week, another episode of the Passionpreneur Podcast. I am your host, Ryan C. Greene. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for tuning in to another show. You know, when you hear that beat, when your head starts nodding, you know it's time for the show. So I want to thank you. Thank you all for supporting me. Thank you for following. Thank you for all those who are listening. Make sure you go ahead and tell a friend we're on the air. Make sure you share the podcast out with your circle, your network. Also, make sure you go ahead and follow me on all social media at Rod G Speaks. At Rod G Speaks. Leave us a 5-star comment, something nice to say, whatever you want to do on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those good podcast providers. We are on all of them. Listen, I want to thank you all for tuning in again. And this is the show where we teach you how to get paid for what you know by building passion-driven revenue streams. And if one of the things you want to do is learn how to write and market your book, we have an amazing workshop, a masterclass coming up soon in the city of Baltimore. So I want to share some more information about that, and then we'll get right into the show. Will this finally be the year that you write your book? Hi, I'm Ryan C. Greene, and as an author coach, I get asked the same two questions all the time. Question one is, how do I write my book? And question two is, how do I sell more books? And at the 6-Figure Author Mastery Masterclass, we're going to teach you how to do both. This upcoming class, we're going to teach you on day one everything you need to know about how to write your book in 3 days so that you can finally get off the couch and get your book done this year. No more excuses. I'm going to show you my proven system on how to get your book done within 3 days so that you finally can get your book published. And then on day two, we're talking all about how to sell more books, how to go out there and maximize the revenue from your book. So if you've not written your book yet and you want to finally learn how to write your book, this is for you. If you've written a book already and you need to know how to sell more books, this is for you as well. So you can go now and register. Space is limited. We're only taking 12 people per masterclass. The next upcoming class is open for registration right now at www.sfamasterclass.com. That's S as in 6, F as in figure, A as in author, masterclass.com. Go ahead and save your seat right now. www.sfamasterclass.com. I look forward to helping you turn your $20 book into a 6-figure revenue stream. And welcome back. So definitely make sure you go ahead and register for that if you're interested in learning how to write and sell more books. Let's jump right into today's show because we have on today a very special guest, one of the coolest cats I know. This guy is someone I graduated from college with. He's just a good down-to-earth brother, but I want to share some of his accolades with you. This guy is a certified financial planner. He is a 5-star wealth manager. That means he's been recognized in the Wall Street Journal, recognized by Forbes magazine. He's in the Circle of Success, which is the top 15% of advisors with his organization. He is a financial wealth advisor extraordinaire based out of Houston, Texas right now. I want to welcome to the show, Mr. Mickey McGill. Welcome to the show, Mickey.
Thanks so much, brother. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to have you here because, you know, Mickey, on this show, we talk about entrepreneurship. We talk about how to help people go out there and build businesses. But one thing we want to also talk about is just how to, when you build that business, what to do with that money, how to manage that money. So anytime I can get someone on here who can talk about wealth management is great. But when I can get someone on here with the qualities and the qualifications of someone like you, it's even better. So thank you for being on the show today, man.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Great. So Mickey, let's talk about your journey first and foremost. We want to get into some of the wealth questions, but let's talk about how you got into this industry and this field, because again, part of becoming a passionpreneur, I try to help people understand what it is to go and pursue their passions. And maybe someone's saying, you know what, 20 years ago, I said I wanted to become a financial advisor. I want to become, a wealth expert and never did it. So talk to us about your journey. Was this something you wanted to do all along? Did you have a career change? How did you end up doing what you're doing right now, Mickey?
Yeah. So I found out that I'm a planner. So in the 8th grade, I had a 30-year plan of what exactly I wanted to do. I knew what college I wanted to go to. I knew what major I wanted to major in. I know what job I wanted to do, what career, what eventual title I wanted to have behind my name. And then it all changed once I got to college. So I was in mass media arts. I had a a full vision to be president of NBC. That was my whole goal. I was going to go in, television, optical services, be behind the scenes. I had no desire to be in front of the camera, but that was my whole goal. Got to Hampton University. Found out that you had to take this test in order to be in the major, and I didn't pass it.
Oh, wow.
So I decided to go ahead and change my major. I found out that I didn't want to work for anybody else. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I switched my major to business management, which was the closest I could get to what I wanted to do, which was just be an entrepreneur. After college, I started a business with my father, and it was a funding and financial service. We did that for about 3 years, and my mom got sick. So I moved back home to Houston to help her out. And while I was in Houston, a friend of mine told me, look in the newspaper for a job. And I saw a job for a financial advisor. And I had a list of all the attributes to be a financial advisor. And it checked all my boxes on everything that I wanted to do. And became an advisor. Absolutely loved it. 19 years now. 19 years later, still with the same company. And found out that teaching, educating, showing people how wealth works, how to pass on wealth to the next generation was truly a passion. And that's where it really started.
Wow, that's a phenomenal story, because I know we had people who may have had a plan. Maybe they thought they wanted to do something, and somewhere along the way they got off track. But you knew what you wanted to do the whole time. You pursued that, and you stuck with this, and have gotten to this level where you are now. So as you were building this, I'm going to assume that it wasn't all peaches and cream. You might have had some roadblocks along the way. Was there any time that you thought, okay, I know this is where I am, but there was a hindrance or a roadblock in the way that kind of made you think maybe you should go a different direction? And then how were you able to kind of push through that to stay for so long in this career, which has clearly paid off for you?
So for me, what I always found that if I work harder than everybody else, I'm going to succeed. So when I first started in the business, I wanted to work smarter and not harder. And everybody said the only way to start in the business is the veterans that I met, they said if I had to change one thing that I did when I first started was build my book by referrals earlier. And so to me, that was, why do it any other way? Build my business through referrals. But being a 24, 25-year-old, you don't know a lot of people with money. So it was a lot of long hours and dealing in a lot of debt cases and building the book the hard way. So it was a challenging way to build my book. It was literally 80-hour weeks that I would work, but I didn't mind. The hard work I knew will pay off, and eventually it did. There weren't any real serious roadblocks that I had. I had some, downturns in the market where I had to work even harder than I did before. But honestly, I just put my head down and just didn't come up for air until I was successful. That was my only way to really make things happen, was do that. And it was really about building a referral-based business from the beginning. And the good news was I was able to be broke for a while, right? I didn't make a lot of money in my first couple of years. And that's where most people fail in the first 3 to 5 years. Most businesses are undercapitalized. Well, making $18,000 a year, not a lot of money, right? Most people quit. So for me, a roadblock where most people would fail in the business was not an obstacle, but an opportunity. So when other people failed, I would sometimes take up clients that they, brought onto the business and got reassigned to me and work harder on that. If they're leaving at 5 o'clock, well, I'm not leaving till 9 o'clock. So, the ability to work as hard as I did, being single, no kids back then, was probably the best thing for me. So I can just put my head down and work until I'm successful.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask you. You kind of slipped that in there real quick about you were able to be broke. What do you mean by that?
So because I moved home to help take care of my mom, I was living at home with my mom.
Gotcha.
So when I started this job, I was living at home with my mom. So $18,000 a year for that job was more money than I needed to worry about, right? I paid her a little money to help out, but honestly, I didn't have to worry about, big rent and light utilities and all that stuff. So I was able to kind of build the business and not make a lot of money. I got married some years after, and things changed, right? And then it changed again when I told my wife. Well, my wife and I decided together that if we were going to have a child, that she didn't want to go back to work. That was one of our agreements. And I'm like, okay, fine, no problem. 2009 happens and the market crashes. Just devastated. I literally lost about half my income.
Wow.
That was a challenge, but again, it was put my head down and work harder than everybody else. And my income doubled by the end of 2010. So I made up her income and then some in that year after the baby was born. So again, it's you know, I don't see obstacles as problems. I see them as an opportunity, right? How do I turn what's going bad into something that works better for me? And sad as it is, when the market does correct and there's a lot of problems, that's actually a best time for an advisor, because when people think that they can do it themselves and they lose half their money, they realize they may be doing something wrong. So I just have to get out there to make sure everyone knows my story and hears it.
Wow. Now we're going to get some financial. I want to word this right, because we're not getting financial advice. We're going to just talk about finances. All right. So
definitely.
All right. So because something you mentioned and kind of triggered in my head was, how would you talked about what you were willing to sacrifice, and that you were living with your mom for a while, and in the day and age we live in now, it's like as soon as you graduate from college, people expect you to go out there and buy a home, get a fancy car. We went to Hampton, so how the perception is of us. So
you gotta show up to homecoming.
Right, exactly. You gotta get homecoming fresh, right? Right. You gotta come out there and show everybody you made it. But if you were advising maybe new college graduates, 22 to 25 years old, what's some advice that you would tell them on how to, maybe some moves that, again, not investment, but just how to deal with that financial, I don't know, that thing, what I'm trying to say as far as.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. This is why I always tell people, don't put golden handcuffs on yourself.
Okay.
Right. Especially right out of school. And a lot of times I tell my players this too. If you get out of school and you were broke in college and now you're making $60,000 a year, don't go living on $60,000 a year. You put handcuffs on your situation. There, you have to either have a better job that pays more, or you're going to be stuck at the same job. So don't go out buying, a $2,000 a month apartment and a $600 a month car note. That puts financial handcuffs on you, golden handcuffs. They're nice handcuffs. They're pretty, right? They're worth something, but they're handcuffs nonetheless. So if you have a desire that I'm working in a job and I want to quit my job and start my own business, and you're making 60 and you're spending 65,000 a year, having that lifestyle, then you're handcuffed to your job. And it's harder to leave and do something new when you have a bunch of a mortgage, big rent. It just makes it a lot more difficult. So for me, it's always live below your means so you have the opportunity to change your life when that time comes about. That's ultimately what it's all about.
Well, people see that live below your means as a curse word sometimes. It's
crazy.
Most
definitely.
But
here's my thing. This is where it makes it really, really easy. Right after you finish college, you were broke already. An extra $20,000 in your life is a life changer for you.
Right.
It doesn't take a lot. You don't have to have the biggest and the best. Deferred gratification is a big deal. I always tell people about, compound interest and saving money up front, and then you have to worry about it later on, right? You save 10, 20% of your income when you first get a job, because again, you're not used to that income. It makes life 10 times easier when you're 10 years later and you got a bunch of money saved up and you want to try something new. You want to have a job that, you may pay you $10,000 less, but it's truly a passion project of yours, right? You need to give yourself the opportunity to change your life when your life is not going the way you want it to.
I love it. Give yourself the opportunity to change your life when your life is not going the way you want it. Man, that's awesome right there. Listen, I want to get this out because, the reason I was stumbling on that last question, because I know when we talk to financial advisors, we have to be clear about the fact that we're not giving financial advice. Let me just get this disclaimer out there now. We're not giving financial advice. We may be talking about finances, but nothing that Mickey is saying is going to be financial advice to you. So don't go calling me. Don't go calling him saying he told you to do something. Right. All right. So now I got that out. So if I ask my question, if I use the word advice, we understand what I'm talking about. All right, great.
Most definitely.
All right. So let's go, because now you've been doing the financial advising for a while. You've been recognized as one of the top in your field, the top in your organization. And recently you've kind of gotten to another niche, not niche, it's niche. So you found yourself a new niche where you are also now an NFL Players Association Registered Player Financial Advisor. And you're able to work with the pro athletes. Now, I follow you on Instagram, so I see all the games you're at, always up in the front rows, and you were just at the college national championship game.
Yeah.
So so obviously, obviously there's some perks that come with your new clientele. But tell us how you were able to get into this field of financial advice, financial advising. Was it something you kind of stumbled upon? Was your goal, part of your goal as well? How did you get into this? And then maybe share the journey for someone else who might want to look into being a pro athlete financial advisor, maybe some of the process they might look into.
Sure. So it's a interesting story. So roughly about 4 years ago, I watched a documentary on ESPN, 30 for 30, called Broke. All about how athletes, what is it? It's 78% of football players are bankrupt within 3.2 years after 3 years of leaving the NFL. And that is not necessarily bankrupt, but also in financial hardships, right? It's a pretty high number with basketball. People out of baseball, when they leave baseball, are 4 times more likely to file for bankruptcy than people who weren't a professional athlete. So there's a lot of those issues going on. I'm also a mentor. I've been mentoring, youth for about 15 years in our Rites of Passage program. So that's another one of my passions, is mentoring, the young men and the next generation. So for me, it was like, I want to help. I'm at a point in my career where, it's kind of mundane. It's the same old every single day. But at the same time, because I want to spend more time with my family, I have to work with a certain level of client, right? They have to have at least $1 million to work with me now. I've kind of moved to that level of advisor. So for me, it was like the perfect marriage of mentorship, dealing with, issues that are higher net worth, because that's where my niche is dealing with athletes. And the thing that really the straw that broke the camel's back was a friend, some friends that I had a very famous friend, right? A professional athlete. And that professional athlete was taken advantage of by his quote unquote advisor and lost, several $1 million. And I met him several times, and I never approached him, never said anything, because I always thought he had it taken care of. But, I could have just looked at his stuff in 5 minutes and figured out something was going wrong. So to me, it was like, that was the change. The Super Bowl happened here in Houston back in 2017. And I made a decision, you know what? I want to work with athletes. Now, there's something that one of my old managers said to me. If you want to make a change in your life, you need a map. And a map stands for a massive action plan. So for me, I had to create a massive action plan going around sports. Because one of the things that's also interesting is that actually I don't really watch sports. I watch the Super Bowl. I may watch one playoff game of basketball, but that's about it. I don't really watch it. So for me, it was going into a whole entire world that I'm just not accustomed to. But I know there was a need. I know that people needed the help. And that's where I decided to set foot in there. So I put out my feelers to everyone that I knew that was involved in sports, connected with a few people. And because I've built relationships throughout my whole entire life, it was very easy for people that knew me, knew the type of person I am, know my integrity, and know my work ethic to refer me to different players. So within 3 months, I had 6 NFL players, and it was really from one referral source, a really, really good friend of mine that I knew back when I was in high school in Rites of Passage, right? So this full circle really kind of, comes around is you need to find an advocate for you for your business. So if you're passionate about it, you have all the opportunities, you need to find someone that's an advocate that can help drive business along with you continually trying to get your own clientele. So flash forward now, it's starting my 3rd year now, working with players, and I have 13 NFL players, 1 baseball, and 2 referrals into NBA players. So we'll see how it goes from there.
Wow. So, you said so much in there to make sure our audience gets it. First of all, you talked about First, well, before I get to that, congratulations, man, on that success. First of all,
Appreciate it.
You know, I'm glad I knew you beforehand because I can't even afford to hire you. So I can't even afford Mickey, but at least we friends though.
Right. Hey, give me some advice on the
Right,
side, brother.
right.
No.
We're getting there. Like, what you got for somebody with $15?
Right. Yeah, right.
All right, but you know, one thing you said was that you talked about, first of all, you made a decision. I love that, and I talk about that a lot too, because people, a lot of people have dreams and they have goals and things that they say they want, but they don't make that decision. And you made a decision that, look, this is what I'm going to do, and from that decision, you put that action behind it. So that was very big. Also, though, you talked about those relationships. You know, I try to tell people all the time, you know, it's you need to treat people as if you need to ask them for $1 million 10 years from now. Like, you know, I wrote this in one of my books, Create a Better You, about building better relationships. You know, we get so caught up, and I say we, I'm speaking in general, but we get so caught up on if someone does us wrong, we've got to go and get them back. We've got to be pettier than them. We've got to go and just get that out and feel good about it. But man, you talked about someone you knew from high school who set you up and really changed the course of your business from one relationship. And I'm just thinking about how that could have been different if that person and you had some kind of negative interaction along the way. And when you needed them 10, 15 years down the line, you know, that door wasn't open for you. So, you know, we talk about those relationships.
Most definitely. And so one of my, I'll tell you this too, you know, again, you never know where relationships will take you, but one of my cousins, she told me the best form of marketing is birthdays. So she told me that I was maybe a sophomore, junior in high school. So I made note of everybody's birthday, and I would call everyone on their birthday. And this is me as a 15 and 16-year-old, you know, calling everyone on their birthday. And I had a whole spreadsheet of, you know, so many different people, and did it for years and years and years. A lot of times people told me I was the only person ever calling for their birthday. Yeah. But those things paid off 20 years later, 30 years later. You literally just don't know how you can, you know, touch someone, you know, and I never did it for, I'm going to ask for a hookup 20 years later when I do this. You have absolutely no idea, but just being nice to everyone and never burning a bridge is just a smarter way to live.
Yeah. You know, and I'm going to say this for the listeners, and, you know, I can't think of a single person who I've ever heard say they don't like Mickey. You know, I mean, I'm thinking about that. Like you've always been that dude that everyone loves, man. And you just, your smile is infectious. You bring joy to everybody. So that's wild that you started when you were young, man. That's crazy. So
appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. I tried. No.
Hey, you're doing good. You're doing good.
Right.
So I want to, one more thing before we had to get out of here, talk about, because you are working with athletes, and African-American athletes, especially. Obviously that's not, you're open to anybody. But I want to talk about how you see sports, and how it impacts the trajectory of African Americans. I know it seems like the only way that, I don't say the only way, the two main ways we're going to, that we see us get rich is through entertainment and sports. So obviously people that we know there's other ways to do it. But how do you see sports impacting or changing the trajectory for African Americans?
Most definitely. So I actually had a coworker of mine that was of another race, and he literally said there are no Black millionaires other than athletes and entertainers. And it was an upsetting comment. And then he said, of course I disagreed wholeheartedly. And he was like, name 5, right? And I'm in the financial business. I know quite a few, billionaires and highly successful people. But even for me, it was a little bit difficult to come up with 5 names. Again, when he's saying millionaires, he's talking multimillionaires, people worth probably $50 million or more. But I struggled at that. So for me, it's take the opportunities that we have presented through sports and entertainment to change the trajectory of our race. So for me, I look at it saying, okay, you're an athlete. You make millions and millions of dollars off the field, on the field. We'll take that money and now look at opening other businesses. And it doesn't just have to be a restaurant or a barbershop. I mean, it can be something different. You can open your own tech company. You can be an angel investor and start up IPOs and there's all these different types of opportunities. Create your own video game. There's all the opportunities that you have with your name that not only can you increase your wealth to make it generational, but give the opportunity to hire other people that wouldn't normally get their foot in the door. So using the athletes and using their opportunities to change how we're perceived is the way I like to look at it. I give a list of the 5 wealthiest retired NBA players. I always talk to my clients about that. Most of the names the Michael Jordans, the Magic Johnsons, but number 2 on the list, most people don't know. His name is Junior Bridgman, and he's worth $600 million.
Wow.
He is the second largest Wendy's owner in the world, right? He took his dollars that he made, only about $700,000 while playing in the NBA back in the day, and parlayed that into an empire. Well, now he's hiring how many people, right? He's changing the lives of how many African Americans, of people in their communities, because he has the ability to take what he did from sports and turn it into wealth, generational money-making opportunities for so many people.
Wow.
That's where I look at it.
And never even heard of him. So, I mean,
exactly. And never even heard of him.
Most people,
right?
Yeah.
Most people have not heard of him. I every single time I tell it to a player, they're like, who? Never heard of him. Exactly.
Right. Wow.
But that's what it is. And this is the thing too. And I'll say this, another important thing. I believe is one of my best attributes is that I don't get embarrassed. I don't care what people think about me. So yeah, I was living at home with my mom. I don't care what you think about me. Right, I met my wife when I was living at home with my mom, and she was okay with it because I showed her that I had a vision. I remember at Hampton, I happened to run into a curtain during a fashion show. It would have been embarrassing for everybody else. I'm like, yeah, it was funny. I hope I got it on tape, right? I don't care what other people think. So for me, I'm not a flashy person. I don't have to have the big car, the big watch, the big dime. It doesn't matter to me. I'm still going to be able to do my job, and you're going to still be able to believe in me because of the way or how passionate I am about what I'm talking about, right? So that's one of the things that a lot of people fall into the trap of, I have to have this image, I have to show this in order to look successful. Look, just get the job done. Success will come. And I don't care what people think about the way I do or what I do.
That's awesome. I subscribe to that same thing, man. It's a freedom in it, man. It's a freedom.
Oh, it really is.
Just being able to know, look, I know what I'm doing. And I think when you have that plan and you know why you're doing what you're doing, you can you're not subject to those golden handcuffs as you described them,
right.
Whether they be physical things or living up to the expectations of other people who feel like you should be living a certain way with your life. So I definitely agree with that. So listen,
definitely.
I want to give you a chance to go ahead and let our listeners know about any upcoming events, if you have anything, or how they can get in touch with you. I'm hoping we have at least $1 or $2 million listener.
Most definitely.
Any final words you want to share? Yeah.
So again, I'm all about wealth creation and changing lives. My main focus now is really around athletics. Actually, athletes and entertainers. I do have a lot of entertainers, singers, and the like. But athletes and entertainers is really kind of what I focus on. So anybody that would want to have a conversation, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with them. You can reach out to me on social media. I'm on just about every one of them as Mickey McGill. Mickey McGill on Instagram, Mickey McGill on LinkedIn, Mickey McGill on Twitter. Give me a follow and reach out to me. I'm pretty good at checking my information and making sure to follow up with people when I do get the opportunity. But I do have I do a lot of seminars across America. I don't have any that are slated at the time, but if you hear about me, want to see, come on out, please come out, introduce yourself. Tell me you heard me on Ryan's podcast here. Would love to talk to you.
Sounds good. Mickey, thank you so much, man. This has been a great talk. I always love sitting down, rapping with you, man. So definitely thank you for joining us on this week's show.
My pleasure. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for the invitation.
All right, man. See you at homecoming.
All right. Most definitely.
Later.
All right, buddy. Bye.
And that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Passionpreneur Podcast. If you liked it, tell someone else about it. Go ahead and share it out. And also make sure you click that subscribe button and follow us and listen to every week's episode. I am your host, Ryan C. Greene. You can reach me at www.ryancgreene.com. follow me on all social media at Raji Speaks. I look forward to working with you, talking to you soon. And just remember, if the best part about going to work is getting off of work, it's time to become a passionpreneur.